Okay, let's go.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Probation Officer's Perspective. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell to all so you'll be notified of all the new content that I'm pushing out. I want to thank everybody for their support to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. So, this is part 2 of the serial killer investigation. I apologize. I wanted to get it out sooner. Well, I want to space it out so that I can do the video and I can talk and I can, I even thought about not even putting my face up here and just putting, like something else up that has to do, with the face and talk. Because, a lot of them stories, there's just a voice that tells the story. And if you're listening to YouTube, on your phone or whatever, you're at work, you're not watching videos, you're listening to the actual content, you're just hearing the voices anyway. But I'm just going to keep my ugly mug here to entertain you guys while I'm talking. So, something that I think I missed, and I wanted to, after I did that video, released it, is that I wanted to talk about as we get into part 2. Before we start getting into part 2. And that is why, and I think I told you, I explained why, but I didn't say exactly the way the victims, they were all female, they were all young, they were all they were all addicted to drugs, and they were prostituting. They're prostitutes. And I'm sure it was for their drug habit. But 3 of the victims were found under the same bridge. And then one was found in a ravine. I forget how many feet down it was. It was a good ways down in a ravine. But it was close to that bridge, but all the victims were killed in the same manner. They were all strangled, strangulation, and they were sexually assaulted. And then their bodies were dumped. And so my take on it and my perspective is there's a lot of, people that do these, again, this is my first investigation I've ever done on a serial killer. So I only know what I've watched on TV, books I've read, about serial killers. Not that I sit there and get into that, but it's something I felt like I needed, like the Jeffrey Dahmer thing, and there's several different killers, serial killers, and but anyway, I wanted to get myself knowledge on things I didn't know, so I was even doing more once I got this case handed to me, because again, I had never done a case. But the thing is they had DNA, bodily fluids on the clothing of the victims. Luckily, they weren't under a bridge where it was a river and washed it all away. But they didn't have any DNA match. That was the problem. But the DNA matched the same person. And so the reason I believe, like I said, it started with the first victim, and then there wasn't another victim till 3 years later. Now, what is your opinion on that? I know, my opinion was, because after that, it was a year later. So the first one, and then it was 3 years till the next one. Then it was a year to the next one, and then a year to the next one. The next victim. All a year apart. And I believe it was 3 years before the next victim, because this person that did this crime this horrific crime, was waiting to see what kind of exposure it was going to get, and to see if they were going to be named, involved, you know what I mean, ever talked to by the police, somehow, related to that case. And I think they felt like it, after 3 years, nothing ever came of it. And anything that was ever put on the news it was a cold case. They didn't have any leads. They didn't have anything. And then so the next victim comes, and then the next victim comes, but they waited a year. Again, I feel like and it might have been just a little bit less than a year, but I feel like they were getting cocky. They were getting more arrogant. They waited that 3 years till their next victim. And they did that because, again, to wait to see if there was going to be any connection with them. And there wasn't. So the next victim came along. And nothing. Again, they had nothing. So this person was getting cocky. And felt like, you know what? Hey, look, I got away with it. It's been this long. I did this, next homicide and got away with it. And they had a freaky fetish, whatever their fetish was. You know what I mean? So that's my perspective at this point in this case. So let's get into part 2. So part 2, in part 1, we ended with one of the victims, which would have been the third victim. Yes, second victim. The second victim was second victim or third? Yeah, second victim was his girlfriend. Okay. And the thing that they all had in common, again, was they all knew each other because they all prostituted in the same, in that one area of town where all the prostitutes and things that went on like that were. And it got to the point where, like I said, he had ditched me 4 times. He finally reached out to me and called me because what I was doing was I was giving everybody my card that I could possibly give. I'd pin my card on the wall in this bar or that bar or whatever was close by. But he had reached out to me and we talked about that. Now, he ditched me 4 times and I was pissed. Because I said because we do meet up on the 5th time. After the 4th time, I told him I was pissed. And I said, now, have I built your trust? Do you trust me now? Because I could have issued a warrant, or if you were in trouble, I would have just issued a warrant and you would have gotten picked up. You know what I mean? You would have got arrested. You'd be sitting in jail and I'd be talking to you at the jail. You know what I mean? Or picked you up at the jail and had you brought in and interrogated. So I didn't do any of that, did I? He's like, no, you didn't. You kept your word on everything you've said. I said, exactly. And that's what I was telling you about, the rapport. You got to build that rapport where they begin to trust you so that they'll talk to you. Well, in this case, again, I didn't think I was going to get ditched 4 times. And I started putting the heat on everybody in that whole scene, in that area. And I was telling other people, because nobody wants to talk. And I get that. That's a street code. I got that. I used to run the streets when I was younger. And we had a code, and you just don't talk. And some people once I got into law enforcement, I learned that they're not going to talk in the hood. They're not going to talk whatever. But if you leave cards, I don't care if they rip it up in front of your face, whatever. But eventually, somebody's going to call you, or you might have multiple calls. But they don't want no one to know, and they don't want to be seen talking to the police, period, in their neighborhood. Understandably. Because it's like prison. What happens to rats in prison? People that are talking, dry snitching, whatever it is. Well, they're going to kill them. You know what I mean? And the same with on the street. So, but that's the way I was. I told him, I said, I'm going to start breaking your whole hustle down, whether it's the prostitution, the drugs. I'm going to start cracking down, and I'm going to get this street or these 2 blocks. The heat's going to be so hot, you're not going to be able to do shit. And then you're going to get arrested, and then you're going to be in jail, and then I'm going to talk to you if you don't start cooperating with me. But we'll get to that point. So, this is a smaller town, on the outskirts of a big city. It's a smaller town. It's not rural, but because it's definitely not rural. It's just another part. Just a suburb. And I finally meet up with the boyfriend. And I'm going to tell you what. I had to meet him in another town. It was at a truck stop. And it was at a Denny's restaurant. So, because I already know he's got to cover all his bases to make sure nobody knows, nobody's following him. You know what I mean? So that they don't know what's going on. So I meet him at this Denny's. There's a Denny's inside this truck stop. And it's about 20 miles away from the city. And I go to meet him. It's in the evening. Of course, I've got I have backup. Not there. I have one person. Again, couldn't be my partner or anybody from my department because I'm not allowed to talk about what I'm doing for whatever reason. But my partner, dude, he's like family. He's like my uncle to my kids, and you know what I mean? That's you can't just do that. But nobody knows. So, but I just called the chief. And then he had somebody, not from our department, from that local department, as backup. And they weren't there anywhere where you could see them or anything like that. And I'm going to smoke while I tell these stories because I'm telling you, when I start telling it, it starts to bring back stuff. My PTSD starts kicking in. I get anxious and whatever. So we talk. We start talking, and he is nervous as shit. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, he looked like shit. Now, granted, I told you there's 4 females. All 4 of these females were Caucasian. They're white. I told you this is a predominantly black neighborhood. Her boyfriend was black. And he looked horrible. Because he was on the run. He was in the hiding. He thought the cops were out to get him. Which nobody had ever reached out to him. You know what I mean? Look how quickly it took for me to reach out to him and him to get back to me. Even though it was just a conversation on the phone at first, at least I got him to reach out to me. It just takes a little effort. And these detectives, I'm telling you right now, if the detectives that I dealt with on different cases like this, say for instance this case where they didn't do shit really, or they weren't doing shit, and there's not a whole lot to it of what they did. And you deal with, or I'm dealing with those type of detectives that aren't doing their jobs because they work on the more high profile cases that are going to give them some notoriety, and that's their first, whatever. That's what they want to do. Their play, because they want to be notarized. People don't recognize them and as being on the news and whatever it is. So it just goes to show you that if this one department that I worked at, these two detectives here did this shitty of a job on this case, think of all the law enforcement departments in the United States and how many detectives that just don't do their job because they want to focus on their own shit or their own egos or whatever it is. Okay? And yeah, you know what? I have a pink lighter. I seen that in my hand. I lost my lighter, and it was like a 5-pack of lighters, and that was the one that was left. It was pink. I don't care. Anyways, so I'm asking him, as soon as I sat down and introduced myself, I'm dressed normal, just like look pretty much kind of like I am now. I used to wear beanies and, I got earrings in and, because I try to blend in, because I had to work a lot of undercover things in I'll get into those stories too. I worked undercover a lot. I got tattoos. And back then when I worked, it wasn't they were more strict. Let's put it that way, unless you were like working undercover or something like that. My boss was very strict. He was the head of a unit in the DEA. And he was an older cat. So he was very strict but a lot of departments were strict in where you could only have a mustache and it could only go to the corners of your mouth like the military. No beards, no other facial hair, no tattoos showing. If you have tattoos, they cannot be showing. Things like that. Your hair, cut short. Shit. These cops now, they got big ass beards. They're blasted with tattoos all over them. I'm like, damn, must be nice, I mean, I got into some of that era towards the end I was in, but I'm just saying in my career prior to that, yeah, they were strict about that, mustache. That was it, But anyways, I used to always dress like that. I have beanies on and hoodie, my earrings, whatever. If it was summertime, I'd wear a wife beater or whatever, slingshot, whatever you want to call them. And I had tattoos and I fit in. I could fit in. So I'm not gonna sit here, smoke a whole cigarette. Just every once in a while, I'll take a couple drags. So, he's sitting there. He's got a glass of water. That's it. I said, "You want something to eat?" You know what I mean? And he said, "Yeah." And he looked like shit. Like, just he was strung out, running, scared. He just looked bad. He was in bad shape. And I asked him, the questions that I normally ask, but with him, I had to be a little bit more delicate. And he started crying right away, when I started talking to him about his girlfriend and things. And he's like, I really love her and I miss her. And, just as he showed me his emotional side, which, you can't always be tricked, especially those crocodile tears. A lot of people, once you get them in the interrogation room, they shed them crocodile tears, but they're not real tears. They don't have any remorse or emotion. And I'm not saying at this point he did anything wrong. I just wanted to talk to him about what he knew. And basically what he told me, and this is what I'm going to relay to you, was he gave me some other names, but he said that he hadn't seen her for a couple of days prior to when she disappeared. And he said it had been a couple of days that he hadn't seen her, because that's the way the relationship was. That's what he told me. He goes, I loved her. She loved me. But I was in the game and I hustled, and I was a pimp and I was a drug dealer, and she knew that. And I knew she did her thing. And, but I asked him, I said, so did you put her up into that game? And he said, no, I met her. She was in that game. And, the prostitution and the drugs. She was addicted to heroin and meth. Well, actually he said heroin and crack. But he said she would do anything. And he told me that he sold heroin, he sold crack, he sold meth. And for whatever reason, crack was a huge, I know everything's meth now. But even then, like I said, this was a little over a decade ago. Crack was big still. It might not, they don't want to show you that on the news media or whatever, but it was still very prevalent in certain neighborhoods. But he said that he had seen her and that they got a hotel room and partied and whatever. And then the next day he said, I got to go do my business. And then she's like, okay, I got to go do my business, and we'll, stay in touch. And he showed me some cell phone text messages. So, I love yous and, be safe. And if you need anything, get a hold of me right away and I'll be right there. Just a lot of different messages. And when she was reported missing by her mother, this again is just one of the victims. There was text messages, just normal, like, what do that, hey, I'm going down to Lucky's and I'm going down there to do my thing. And he said, I'll be down there later on. Be safe. If you need anything, again, call me or text me and I'll be right there if you have any problems. I love you. And that was it. That was the last text message. He showed me, I got his phone, all the text messages. And it jived up. It was her phone. And we ended up getting all the records for the phone records. And there was nothing funny about it. Like, there was no funny business. They were just, living that lifestyle of drugs, using drugs, selling drugs, prostitution, pimping, and whatever. So he said, look, I want to tell you something, and I'm going to give you a name. And he said, I don't know that it has anything to do with anything, but this is just what I've heard on the street. And I've seen and dealt with this guy several times, and he's a police officer. I'm like, no shit. He's like, yeah, he harasses the girls. He's busted people for drugs. He said he busted me several times, or a couple times, not several, couple times, and took his drugs and then let him go after he scared the shit out of him and thinking he's getting, charged and getting, sent to prison. No, he took his drugs, and he said he's known for that. He's a dirty cop. I'm like, I never heard of him, but again, I said, you know what? All right, I appreciate, the information. And I gave him some money. He was broke. He wasn't selling drugs at the time because he was running. He was hiding. And I said, you ain't got no reason to hide because you don't have a warrant for your arrest. But I need you to keep in contact with me on a daily basis. I need to talk to you every day. You let me know what's going on every day for right now till we can get things figured out. And he agreed. And like I said, I got him something to eat. I gave him a little bit of money to go get a hotel room. I told him to go take a shower, you know what I mean? Go relax. Whatever it is, get some food in you and quit worrying right now because there's nothing to worry about. But I said at some point, I need you've got to promise me though first that you're going to come in and I need you to do a polygraph test. And the only reason I need you to do that is because I need that, even though polygraph tests aren't admissible in court. I mean, in civil litigation, it's different, but in criminal, it's not held up in court. So it doesn't make you look good if you don't pass it, but they can't use it against you. But I told him, I said, I need to get a polygraph from you. And so you need to stay in touch with me. And if you don't do that, I will pick you up and I will put you in jail. And then we're going to go from there. And we had that understanding, and I wholeheartedly believed. I mean, here he is sobbing, crying, looks like shit. And he did it. He kept his word. He kept in touch with me every day. I said, you don't got to call. If you can't call, just text me. You know what I mean? Text me. But we do need to speak on the phone. So I'm saying, I need some communication from you every single day. But for some reason, you're in a position where you can't talk to me on the phone. You need to text me. And he put me in his phone under some, whatever nickname. I don't even remember what the nickname was, but. So we leave, go our separate ways. He keeps his word. He keeps in touch. So I start looking into this police officer he's talking about. I can't find anything. He had a couple of write-ups on his record as a police officer that had to do, it wasn't corruption or anything like that. One was excessive force, use of excessive force, and the other one was what was it? I forget what it was, but it was something minor. It was very minor. It really had nothing to do. So I couldn't find any dirt on this guy. I was digging deep, because he was a cop, and I, cops, dirty cops are just not my bag. I like to, if there's a dirty cop out there, and I've seen him to work with them. Again, I'm not a snitch, and we have our own code, but I'll confront that person individually to their face about what they're doing. But I'm not going to go turn around and rat on them like a lot of other officers do. They're a bunch of snitches and rats. Unless it had to do with somebody's life, or, them doing something excessive, then yeah, I would step in and do what I had to do. But I'm not like that. You know what I mean? We're men, we're men and women, and we all took the same oath to protect and serve and hold up the Constitution and the laws of our state. And, and so when you break that, for your own personal gain, I don't have no sympathy for you. None. Sorry, but I don't. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and put the name out there. Nah, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I thought about it for a minute, and I'm not going to do that because I just don't want to ruffle any feathers or whatever. But anyways, I get him to come in, and I get him to meet me at the same truck stop to do a polygraph test. And our office is discreet. Let me explain to you how it is. It's kind of in the ghetto. Like right around the corner is ghetto. It's not a good neighborhood, but it's a busy road, kind of busy road. And our building sits way back. And then there's fence around the whole thing. And you can't see through the cyclone fence because it's got, those things through it, so you can't see through it. But there's no name on it. There's nothing on it. Nothing at all. I don't even think the address was on it. And that's where our office was at. And what we would do is pull in the back and then go in the back door. And my windows were always blacked out on my cars. We blacked our windows out. So you couldn't tell who was in the car, who wasn't in the car. So I met back up with him at the truck stop and then drove to the office. And then we had our polygraph examiner there. And it was at night, because I was thinking it was like in the evening or during the day, but it was at night, and there was to be nobody there where we were at in the office. So we basically brought him in the back door because, like I said, it's a remote gate. So you just hit the button and get in. You punch your code in, remote. Boom. The gate opens up. Once you're in there, nobody can see in there, and it's got barbed wire, razor wire on the top, and I think it's 12-foot high fences. And there's nothing around. There's no houses. There's only trees all the way around it. And then there's a business on the other side of the trees way far. So people don't know. And they couldn't see him, even if they wanted to. And nobody was looking for him. Anyways, nobody knew nothing. And so it was me, the chief, and a polygraph examiner. And he passed the polygraph test. Everything I asked him, like things that we had talked about on the phone, what had happened, the text messages, everything he told me, everything I knew about this case that I was asking him questions about, everything that I had the polygraph examiner ask him, he passed with flying colors, 100%. No deviation, no deception was detected. So at that point, I felt like, again, you can't use that, but I felt like, what he's telling me about this officer, this dirty cop. And he told me that he has a partner that's dirty too, that he works with, but they don't work for the same department. This guy worked for the city, and the other guy worked for the, he was like auxiliary, I think, or something like that, deputy sheriff. And so he said that he works with him a lot, like as in their buddies, and they do this shit, harassing The girls. The girls all the time, he said. That's what he told me. He said that he would take those girls. He would pick those girls up. You know, he was always in the neighborhood. He worked that neighborhood at night when all the action was going on. Now, of course, he did busts and he did drug busts. And he did, you know, when they did sweeps and they cracked down on him, whatever, he did it. But there was a side to him when he wasn't on duty and he would still wear his badge in his own personal vehicle and pick these girls up and get by them things and take them places and do things for them or with them and have them do things for him, if you know what I mean. And he would do that off duty. And so the plot starts to thicken because I'm hitting these 2 blocks or 3 blocks, whatever. It doesn't matter, however many blocks it is, on the regular at night. And I start getting around and I'm talking to the other girls out there on the street that are working. And again, I'm in plain clothes. And we had, you know, my chief gave me full reign on this case. So, to talk to some of the girls, you know, I had to act like I'm, you know, who I am. You know, I'm a John. And then they would get in the car and then we would take off to go around the corner. And then I would show my credentials and my badge, and my credentials. And say, I need to talk to you. And that's how I got a lot of information. And the word got around. And I had not 1, but 2 COs from the county jail, which were deputy sheriffs. They were deputies that were COs, you know, because they got to work. The way it works here is, or where I worked at is, if you're a deputy sheriff and you have a county jail and you get hired on there, you're going to work in the county jail for however long before you get to go on the street, on the road. Sometimes it could be a year, 3 years, or you may never. They might keep you in the jail because, you know. And I've seen a lot of them go out on the road and get sent back to the jail to work the jail. So, anyways, I got a lot of information, but I got these 2 COs. First one they called me and said, I got some information that I need to talk to you about. I said, oh, really? And again, they don't want, man, this town is so corrupt that nobody wants to talk. Even the officers, nobody wants to talk. They're all scared to talk. Why are they so scared to talk? I couldn't understand it. And so we had the other victim and then the other victim. So the 4th victim, I told you about that. And then it just stopped. Okay. But, and I'm going to explain to you why. Because after that 4th victim, and I'm working this case, after the fourth victim, which was not that long prior to me taking over, these COs, these 2 deputies that I talked to, one was a female deputy, so she talked to all the females, like, you know, she had a rapport with them, because these girls were in and out of jail all the time, whether it be for drugs or prostitution or whatever, but she had that rapport with them. They liked her, and they would talk to her on a personal level. So I talked to her. And of course, again, I tell you guys, I record, you know, that's what we have to do. We have to record everything. We couldn't get our schedules together for the one that had the most information, the female CO, to get her to come in. And there's really, like I said, it's hard because he doesn't want anyone to know about this case, my chief. And I'm telling you, still at this junction in the case, I'm still blown away as I can't wrap my head around why he's so secretive. I don't understand it. Okay. And, him being in charge of a unit in the DEA prior, and him, he has a lot of experience. I just trusted him as to, whatever he's my boss, whatever you say. So she's willing to do a phone conversation with me, a phone interview. And I record the whole phone conversation. And she's telling me everything's leading back to this cop, this police officer. She's saying it. All the girls in the jail were talking about him. Because if you didn't do what he wanted you to do, if you were a girl, a female, and you were out there on the streets, and if you didn't do what he wanted you to do, again, he's buying them things and trying to, smooth them over and get that connection of, like, he's helping them, but in reality, he wants something in return. And they told me, or she told me, all the girls would tell her that if you didn't do what he wanted you to do, then he would bust you. He would put some throwdown dope on you and arrest you, and you're done. And it's his word against your word. Who are they going to believe? A prostitute that's strung out on drugs, or the police officer who's pretty much, like I said, decorated. He never got no trouble, anything like that. He got in 2 minor things in his whole career. So, at this point, this information is getting really good. And I'm relaying this, again, to my chief, to the chief, about what I'm getting at and what's going on. And it's getting to look like possibly we have an officer, a rogue officer, that's killing these girls. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened. We're going to have to get into part 3 for, what really went on. But as right now, because I got to end this, we're at 43 minutes. This police officer is looking more and more like the suspect of the killing of these girls. Just, again, we have no evidence, no concrete proof yet. Because you're pushing against a department and it's corrupt. This is why I said in my channel description, and when I started my channel, I talk about corruption that I've dealt with. Okay? And I've dealt with a lot of corruption. And this case here has a lot of corruption involved. I mean, as you can see, this cop's doing, but it's hearsay at this point. But when you start questioning somebody like that, that's close to the chief of police, dude, he's in with everybody. The mayor, the chief of police, the captain, he's in with all of them. Like, in tight, as meaning they got his back. So it's really hard. You got to penetrate that at a certain level. And we're going to get into that. Like, he's not the only suspect, but with all the evidence as far as the interviews that I've done, the people I've talked to, everything's starting to point towards this officer and maybe his partner. Not his partner in the department, a partner from a friend partner that works for another department. I'm going to leave you with it at that. We're going to do part 3. And I'll drop that in a couple days. But let me just leave you at that. I mean, there's several different suspects at this point from all the people. Now, granted, these other detectives didn't get shit at this point. Like, it took me about a month, 1 month, to get all the information that I had just gotten working this case of just being out there all the time and talking to people and building rapport. 1 month. They had that case, well, the first one for years, second one, years, or not years, but yeah, a couple years. Third one, nothing. They had shit. They didn't have nothing. You know, and that's kind of funny, don't you think? To me, it was. Didn't make sense to me. Something wasn't jiving. My gut was telling me something was not on the up and up from the beginning. And then this just made everything in my gut feel like, you know what, my gut was right. But I'm going to leave you, and we're going to leave it at this right now. We're at 47 minutes. Holy shit. And I promise you that the next episode, it's going to be the final episode, the part 3. And then I'm going to get more into this as to what happened and which direction this leads. So I do have some other suspects, some other names. His name wasn't the only name out there, this officer. I guess I kind of made it sound like that when I'm telling you this, because of the deputy, the CO deputies, and girls I had talked to. But there were some other names floating around. So, you got to sift through all the bullshit. Excuse me. And like I said, it's a puzzle. It's a mental puzzle, man. I would stay up all night long, racking my brain and going over all my interviews and people I spoke to and places I had been, and trying to figure out, everything, like who and why, and could it be, and is this person lying to me? Is that person telling the truth? Yeah, it's just a game, and you got to get all that shit together. All right, guys, part 3 will be coming. A couple of days. Give me I'd say 2 days again. I'm going to bust out part 3, and it will be the final episode. But just think about it. In 1 month's time, and those 2 detectives and the sergeant had this case for a long time with nothing. And it took me a month. Maybe a little over a month. Maybe a little under a month. I'd say it was a little over a month. I got all this information. Things are leading towards this police officer. The boyfriend passed the polygraph. That doesn't mean he's innocent. People beat polygraphs all the time. But I believed him. I really did. I believed him wholeheartedly that he had nothing to do with that. And he only, like I said, I don't know. It's a brain teaser, man. It's a really whodunit. Because at this point, my gut's telling me it's this cop and his friend who's a cop. That's what my gut's telling me. But I can't just go with my gut. I got to have solid evidence and proof. and I'm pushing against the department. And when you push against a department, especially if it's a corrupt department, they're going to push back. And I'm not going to get shit. And I'm going to get, what's going to happen is people are going to get fired and shit's going to start just going to get real bad. So I have to make sure they don't know that I'm even thinking about talking to him at this point. Anyways, guys, that's it. I could keep going on because I really wanted to keep going, but I can't. It's been 50 minutes now. I said I was going to stop a long time ago. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by. Again, if you haven't already done so, you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell to all so you'll be notified of all the new content that I'm pushing out. And with that, part 3, the final episode will be dropped in, give me 2 days. It'll be dropped, Friday night. How about that be a good Friday night? I'll drop it Friday night. All right, with that, see you on the next one. Peace out.